This documentary will cover issues with modern agriculture on the Australian environment. Agriculture is becoming increasingly difficult due to environmental changes like climate change and bad land management. An example of bad land management would be the clearing of trees because it increases salinity in the soil, and the planting of monocultures which exacerbate the effect of pests and disease. There are a number of different ways to reduce the impact of these issues, like adapting agriculture to fit the land by employing techniques like biomimicry from permaculture, incorporating more trees into farmland, and developing sustainable and environmentally friendly methods of agriculture. Agriculture supports people around the world socially and economically. Though agriculture supports many Australians, it also has serious environmental impacts on our country. Water cycles in Western Australia have been altered by the mass clearing of trees for farmland, and this in turn is increasing the salinity in the Murray-Darling River. And 1/3 of wheat crops in Australia are also estimated to be lost due to salinity by 2050. An environmental scientist came to explain how agriculture has impacted the salinity of Australian soil, and what farmers are doing to solve this. Over 100 million hectares of Australian land has been cleared of native trees and other flora so that it could be used as agricultural land. This is one of the reasons why salinity in Australian soil is such an issue. Australian farmers are certainly aware of this, so many of them plant alfalfa and trees to deal with the problem. If you look at the Australian Bureau of Statistics report on the matter from 2003, it shows quite obviously that there is a higher percentage of salinity management than actual levels of salinity. As you can see here, the central column, which is a measure of salinity in the soil, has lower figures than that of the salinity management column on the right. This is evidence that farmers are preparing for salinity more than it occurs. With this knowledge, I am sure that most farmers don't want to destroy the area where their crops grow, regardless of their views on environmental land care. It just isn't economically viable to salt your lands. Not everybody believes in this kind of long-term preparation. The Baird government has abolished the Native Vegetation Act and replaced it with legislation that makes it easier for farmers in New South Wales to clear native vegetation on their land. It is estimated that this change will lead to the clearing of more than 20,000 hectares of native vegetation per year. This kind of vegetation loss could lead to greater instances of drought and soil degradation, because there will not be as many trees around to undergo transpiration, and so rainfall will decrease significantly. Drought is especially serious in a place like Australia because the plants we generally use for crops aren't native. This means they do not have the necessary adaptations like deep roots to survive in the soil during periods of drought, and so during drought periods agricultural areas suffer significant losses in crop production. Because of the long-term environmental and economic impacts, the land clearing legislation that the Baird government has introduced is irresponsible. It may bring short-term economic growth, but in the long term it will increase the severity of drought and soil erosion, and will contribute to losses in crop production for agricultural farmers. In terms of sustainability, permaculture is a better alternative to clear-cutting. It's based off a 3-tiered system where small, medium and large plants are used to build an artificial ecosystem. This ecosystem works because the plants that are selected are similar to native plants from the area. Animals that behave similarly to those in the area are also introduced. This combination of plants and animals forms an artificial ecosystem. If done correctly, it can reverse soil degradation and rejuvenate the land, making the soil more fertile and ideal for crop production. It has been largely successful experimentally, but is unpopular because it's expensive and can take years to properly establish the ecosystem. It's so valuable because after the ecosystem has been established, it becomes largely self-sustaining and can yield produce throughout the year. There is a place being built in Abu Dhabi called Masdar City, which is groundbreaking in terms of sustainable architecture. It has been designed to be carbon neutral and largely self-sustaining. If it is successful, it could influence the way that people think of designing cities, and also how we think of our place in the environment.